There are hundreds of thousands of LEGO sets in this world, and your opinion may vary on any of them due to friends or just your opinion overall. But there's what I call a dream LEGO set. It's where your opinion never varies on it, and that's because you love the set and want it so badly you'd do anything for it. It's just your favorite set. And there's 3 things you could do with a dream LEGO set. Option number 1. You could actually buy the set, depending on how expensive or how cheap it is. The LEGO set I want, my dream LEGO set, is lots and lots of money. So that was an immediate no for me. Option number 2. The lamest option, you could live with yourself not having it and just keep dreaming of it, and never do anything to get closer and having it or anything like that. And that was an immediate no for me as well. Or what I did. Make your own version of this LEGO set and make it as close as possible to the original set and make it good. And you could even make it better. But that's what I did, and I'm here to showcase it to you guys. So if many of you guys didn't know, my dream LEGO set is the Death Star, and here I'm showcasing all the figures. I included in my custom Death Star, over 28 figures and counting. Some are duplicates though for each room, and I will give you a room by room tour in just a second with each figures in each of their rooms. And I honestly think that this turned out as a pretty good model. Honestly, it's not up to scale with LEGO's official Death Star, but I still personally think it's very, very good. So the first room we're going to start out with is actually on the bottom, and it's one of my personal favorite rooms. It's the trash compactor room. Well, there's not much going on. It is a rather small, compacted room. See what I did there? It's pretty funny. But there's nothing much really except for those 3 eyes right there. I guess those are eyes or cameras, whatever they are. And the walls are semi-movable. I did add some texture. I tried to make them look detailed. They're probably the most detailed part this entire room, honestly. And I did add the monster tentacle right there. And the 2 figures I decided to add, I could only throw in 2 really, is Stormtrooper Han Solo and the man himself, the Stormtrooper Luke Skywalker. I couldn't really fit any more because it was tight squeeze. I feel like it would have looked too weird. But I tried to make the figures look as if they were actually in a good position, like trying to resist against like the wall compacting on them. And overall, I really do like this room. I think it's one of my personal favorites, but let's move on to the next one now. Now, as for the room next to the trash compactor, this room is a bit different. As you can tell, it's a bit spacious with an under part even, which is underneath the upper level. So to cover that space up, I decided to put in some cannons. One from the Snow Trooper Battle Pack, and I feel like that fit pretty well to cover up some of the space, and another custom made by me actually. So just to cover up that space, I should put those there. And you're probably wondering what the room is actually for. I should put in an escape pod because I feel like this room looks really good with the escape pod. The figures I put in are actually quite iconic with the escape pod. R2-D2, you could probably guess who else. I also put in C-3PO. But not just any C-3PO and R2-D2. These are nice ones from the Trash Compactor diorama set because they've got nice 360 printing, and C-3PO has some nice arm printing and leg and torso printing. Same thing with R2-D2. He's got some nice back printing. And overall, they've got nice prints. So I figured it would be better to use them rather than other ones. And this room is pretty good, actually. So let's move on to the next room. Now it's time for the room over from this. This one is actually a really iconic room and one of my favorites. It's the Death Star escape. And this is actually a real LEGO set, too. So this room is actually where Luke escapes with the rope, and it's really, really great. And yeah, if you could guess, one of the figures was in fact Luke Skywalker. And I included 2 troopers, one regular stormtrooper over there in the little back area, and I decided to include a more unique figure that you wouldn't have expected to be here. And it's not from the show, it's actually Snow Trooper, because I think Snow Troopers don't get enough respect, so I just decided to put him in here with his long rifle to give him more of a good-looking effect. And I put in some detail on the wall if you couldn't tell, and I put in a miniature holder for a gun right there. And there's also just this rod right there because there's nothing underneath, so it gives off a better effect. And there's I put black bricks right there to look as if it's a hallway that's endless. So let's move on to the next room. Now it's time to do the room next to where the Luke escape room is. This one is just a cannon room, but I actually took inspiration from an actual LEGO set. It's the Death Star escape, and that LEGO set comes with Obi-Wan Kenobi and a trooper as well. And those are actually the figures that I decided to include in this Lego set, because that Lego set came with 2 pillars that you see there and a cannon. So the first figure is one of these like Death Trooper-ish people that work at the Death Star. And then, of course, I included Old Ben. So there's nothing much going on in this room very much, just 2 figures. But the one thing I really do like about the cannon is that it can move around. It can't move up and down, unfortunately. One thing I'd like to do is replace it with the 501st Specialist cannon. But I haven't been able to get that set anymore, so when I do, I'll be switching it out. So there's nothing much. Let's move on to the next room. Now time for the room above the cannon room. This here is the TIE Fighter room. But I don't have the TIE Fighter in currently, just to show you some interior stuff that the TIE Fighter covers up. Such as a TIE Fighter windshield up there, which looks absolutely amazing. And some open side panels to look like cabinets or holding something or something like that. And here we have the TIE Fighter, which is not custom built. It's actually the TIE Fighter I took straight from Darth Vader's Castle Lego set. I feel like it fits great and looks great in there. And for the figures, I included this protocol droid from the TIE Fighter Lego set. And of course, I had to throw on a TIE Fighter pilot. It's a First Order one, but I think the First Order TIE Fighter pilots look better and have more detail. So personally, that's just what I think. That's why I threw them in. And there's nothing much going on around it. I feel like the room looks really great though, and it can open and close. So let's move on to the next room. Now let's move to the room beside this. This room is my favorite room by far. It's the Death Star Final Battle room, which is really amazing. And I actually based it off my Death Star diorama mock that I created a while back. I will link that whole video that I have about it in the description. But the first figure I decided to include in the set is obviously Emperor Palpatine sitting on top his throne. And Emperor Palpatine is custom because I don't have the official fig, which I should probably buy, but I think it looks fine up there for now. And then for some of the figs down here, we have not one Royal Imperial Guard, but we have 2 Royal Imperial Guards down here, manning where the door would be. And as you could guess, the last 2 figs I have in this room are Darth Vader himself, along with his son, Luke Skywalker. And the reason, I don't know why this one actually has the most figs in it. I feel like this one just looks the best with the most figs in here. But this is just my favorite room by far. All the detail and everything in this room, with like that big window above Emperor Palpatine's throne. Anyways, let's move on to the next room now. Now let's move on to the room beside this. This is a pretty bland room. Not much going on here, but this is one of the control rooms that help control the Death Star's radar dish, one of my favorites. And I'll show you how the radar dish works later. But as for the figures, I only included 2, one of which being the Scout Trooper minifig from the Snow Trooper Battle Pack. I think this figure looks pretty good in here. And the other one was a First Order control trooper, but who cares if it's from the First Order? It still looks really good. And one of these control panels will move up and down. And over here we've got a miniature control station, which looks okay and really adds something to the room. I feel like not much more going on. As I said, it just controls the main beam, which actually looks better than I thought. Behind that trooper we should have a box. Now let's move on to the next room. Now let's move on over to the room beside this. This room is really, really cool. And it's actually the prison room with Leia. Now, saying that, you could probably already guess some of the figures I'm including in this Lego set. And if you can't guess, then I really don't know what to say to you. But this is really, really cool. We've got this whole prison cell and everything. But anyways, the figure I am including first is Princess Leia in the jail cell. Probably should have switched her expression to more angry, but you know, it's whatever. And then I included 2 troopers. Snow Troopers specifically, because as I said earlier, I feel like Snow Troopers don't get as much appreciation as they should. So I included them here. And I'll probably replace them eventually with regular troopers, but I feel like 2 Snow Troopers look okay. And then over here we've got some handcuffs with some boxes with stuff stored in them, just to fill up some room. And I feel like it looks actually pretty good in here. And we've of course got the black boardwalk where they're walking on. And then we've got the jail cell, so there's not much more going on, except for a little present over there in Leia's prison. But let's move on to the next room. Now, time for the last level, the upper level. This is the room above the Leia prison room. It is a meeting room which is actually pretty cool. And I feel like I managed to fit the table in pretty well using minifig display stands as the actual part of the table. And the 3 figs I decided to include are Darth Vader himself and just 2 Imperial officers, one in black cloak and a pistol, and then the other in a blue cloak. So there's nothing much more going on. This room is pretty small, but we've got an Emperor Palpatine hologram. But other than that, it's pretty much it. Let's move on to the next room. Now for the room beside this, we're just going to skip by this one. Just going to give you a little brief introduction to this one. It's just a cannon room. The one cannon from the Imperial Light Cruiser Lego set with 2 flick fire missiles that shoot just fine. There's no figures because it's just supposed to be outside. But yeah, there's also a miniature TIE fighter I clipped on there to make it look as if it's flying. Very nice, right? Now this room you should recognize because it's from the Lego Star Wars games. Is the helmet dispenser. I'm very glad I included this. It's one of my favorites. And of course for the figure I had to include none other than Chewbacca himself. And then to get the helmet to stay, I had unfortunately had to use sticky tack. But it's whatever, it doesn't really matter. And for one more fig, I just included this mini BB unit to cover more space. Anyways, that's it for those rooms. So let's move on to the final room. And now, time to move on to the final room of the Death Star that I created. This is another control room above the original. So it's just got another control panel thing that moves around. And we also have a black and yellow canister. For the 2 final figs, we've got another one of those Death Star control troopers, along with this kind of commando comrade kind of guy from a Rogue One Lego set, which just goes onto that hopper plate. And now time to show you how the beam works. It can move around and up and down, and it's actually just attached to a jumper plate, so it's pretty easy to attach on and very easy to move around. It's not very difficult, and I feel like this actually looks pretty good. Anyways, here's my final Death Star. Make sure to comment down below your favorite room, and thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and peace out, y'all.